I would like to now invite our next two speakers, His Grace Kalakantha Prabhu and His Grace Samba Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. It's been a long road in talking with Srila Prabhu, our Minister for Education. We feel that there's a great need of collaboration between the education ministry, which is foundational to all of our efforts, and in the case we are working with cow protection and agriculture, and these two activities need a community to be run. So therefore, Samba Prabhu, who is running a project here in Mayapur on Varnashrama College, is presenting this topic. This is not a complete presentation on this topic. It's a huge topic, as we saw. It's simply an insight on some specific aspect of vocational training. Would you like to say something on the introduction?
Yeah, we have basically Gurukul training is Varnashram training because it's almost inseparable. As you grow, one of the aspects of figuring out Varnashram is seeing the traits of the children as they grow up. And you can see that in the Gurukul system, how the children, their inclinations, they become revealed over time as they work. Because the Gurukul system is a lot about seva as well as academics, in the action of doing seva, you can see the character of the children coming out. And then gradually you tailor the education according to those inclinations that become apparent. So the Varnashram College takes that a step further as they get older and they're able to do more physical activities. Then the Varnashram Colleges helps them to get experience in all sorts of different fields of human activity. So we're going to be looking a little bit at that.
Yes, so the title of our presentation is Varnashram College for Vocational Training, Unconventional Education for a Better World. This is really the question which we are posing to all of you mature educators.
Can working with your nature lead to abundant living? So nowadays, the modern educational system takes you down a certain course which doesn't necessarily cater to your nature. What is it you like to do, or what are your inclinations?
Yes, and can that nature being counted for lead to abundant living?
Okay, so Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse 33. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? Each and every human being is born with one of four character types. Being educated according to character type ensures that a person can reach their full potential. Any education that ignores this fails a large portion of the population. Many of the world's most successful people are people who followed their dreams. We hear this, follow your dreams. Many of them are not particularly qualified in terms of modern education, but because they followed their inclination, they are able to pull the resources together, human resources, material resources, to become successful.
And here's a short list.
Okay, Benjamin Franklin. I think you all know Benjamin Franklin. He left school when he was 10 years old.
Wow.
And went on to achieve great heights. Charles Dickens, famous British playwright and author, left school very early. He was in a poor family. He needed to leave school a few times to raise money for the family. Walt Disney, he dropped out of school at 16, and he has this you can see on this picture here. All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. Nowadays, you have to have the courage. Richard Branson is a very famous British entrepreneur, billionaire. I think he even has a space program to take tourists into space. Dropped out of school when he was 16. Do you want to speak?
Yeah, and this we have Amancio Ortega, who just launched Zara, a fantastic concept in shopping for stylish, and he is the third richest man in the world, and he left school at 13.
And then Quentin Tarantino, very famous film director, dropped out of school at 16. Extremely successful.
So it seems that there is some place for pursuing your dreams.
Okay, so Prabhupada says one must act. Srimad Bhagavatam tells us one must act by his natural tendency according to the three modes of material nature, because this natural tendency forces him to act in a particular way. We're forced to act in a particular way. So how do we make the best use of that? Today's education system labors under the evolutionary concept that every person is like a blank slate. You hear this spoken of a lot. They're like blank slates, we can turn them into anything we want. The motivational speakers, you how to become a millionaire. You buy my book, you can become a millionaire. Who becomes a millionaire? So they don't understand the need to educate according to each individual's inherent nature. Those who succeeded by following their dreams did so despite the educational system. Therefore, if we want to give everyone the chance to succeed, we have to give them an education that helps them to realize their own potential.
So in this presentation, we are bringing the point that actually being able to identify your nature is a key point in education.
So history confirms, India was known for its fantastic architecture, its cultural conquest, mathematicians. Sushruta, the original surgeon, contributed so much. India has contributed so much to education throughout the world. So it's very important to follow that.
Yeah, actually, there's a certain report which was discovered on little historical leaf palm records of villages when the British arrived, reporting of a village who would produce 12 tons of paddy per hectare. Now, to give you an understanding of that, today, with all the GMOs and hybrid varieties, we get 3 tons. So you can see that these people were learning this art somewhere. And somehow they were able to have an abundant living.
Yes, so learning from the past, substituting traditional occupational systems for today's industry-based wage slave system, it's not working. But it only takes one generation of children to change the entire societal paradigm. When you have one generation of children which has been trained up in proper culture, then you have a whole future of people who understand. So in terms of Varnashrama education, if people are trained according to their nature, then they take that forward and they become very productive and happy human beings in the future. So it's very important to take our children and give them the best we can give them.
Right. Now, we have a post from Washington reporting on the UCLA survey, and they're saying that despite educators around the world being concerned, and we heard about Oxford, the motto is illumination. Despite these mottos, many universities today discover that the main goal of the students is simply to find a better job. And that's a great concern in university today. How can they make university relevant? And actually, my father, he is a PhD orienter and in genetic resources, and he's retired now, but he's been running this for many years. And while preparing this, I phoned him to ask him. And he says that actually today there's a great gap between what university offers and what the market demands. That gap is huge. So he's saying that for the students, his students who want to be successful in genetic resource, they should actually provide something which is relevant for the farmers. So in his field is the farmer's world, which is the relevant world. So having said that, we find that there is a great scope for leading people to their nature.
So everyone seeks meaningful occupation. In many countries, vocational training is very specialized. For instance, in the realm of telecommunications, if you go through college to learn the telecommunications system, by the time you've graduated, the technology is already outdated and you're stuck. So this college education doesn't help. It's almost useless. According to the Washington Post, only 27% of college graduates can get a job related to their education. So it's a big myth. Everyone's told, oh, you have to study hard in university to get a good job, you have to become an engineer. In India now, there are so many engineering colleges popping up. You go to Calcutta, there's like half a dozen engineering colleges coming up. I remember meeting a rickshawala in Vrindavan. I used to go to Mathura quite frequently. And I got to find out that he was a graduate of engineering. And he couldn't get a job. He was making more money being a rickshawala in Vrindavan than he could in any other area because he couldn't get a job.
In Brazil, there's a very funny joke. They had a job advertisement for people who collect garbage. And they found 4 PhDs among the candidates. So that was kind of a joke in Brazil.
Okay. Yeah, so in many countries, people are realizing that the job market is just unfulfilling. And people are actually returning to traditional occupations. In the UK, for instance, many young people are going into the forests and are learning how to do green woodworking or other traditional crafts because they feel like I'm doing something I can actually do. I can use my skills. I can create something useful. And instead of all these plastic chairs which have taken over, they're producing beautiful things which people want. So, so in Gurukul, this is the Varnashrama College. This is the first house. We built this. We finished this last year. Some of the Gurukul boys helped us to produce this. Wooden house. It's all done of local materials. These trees were harvested from a field where the trees were grown by ISKCON 25 years ago. And the boys have been learning how to build like this. So it's very nice. Many of the boys that helped to build this, they're thinking about, what can I build? What house will I build when I'm a kid? And it empowers them. They became empowered to see that you can take local materials that Krishna has produced and you can produce something which is pretty practical, which will last for generations. So,
an interesting observation, this project of this house, is that Mayapur planted actually a type of eucalyptus called the red gum, which is resistant to flood, but they never connected the dots that this is an excellent building material. And yeah, you can.
One of the boys said to me, "Why don't you build your house using eucalyptus?" And I wasn't sure if that was eucalyptus because there's 200 species of eucalyptus. So I found out from the land office what it was, and they told me it was Red River gum, which the pioneers in Australia used to build their original houses. It's perfect for building houses, and much of it had been sold for paper, making paper pulp. So I was inspired by Prabhupada's idea that take some land, cut down the trees, clear the area for agriculture, build your house, live simply. Simple living and high thinking. So I wanted to show the students, you can take what Krishna's given and you can make something very nice. So we did it. And then traditional occupations, life skills. One of the purposes of Varnashrama College is to prepare people to take what Krishna's given and use it in Krishna's service to fulfill their needs. So pottery, blacksmithing, paper making, very beautiful products you can make compared to the modern products which, you buy some kitchen machine now, it lasts you 3 to 5 years and then it's finished. It used to be you bought a kitchen product and it would last you your lifetime. So people are looking for returning to this kind of product which will last a lifetime and which is handmade. It has a certain quality which these things don't have.
And there's a huge market for that. The world is looking for handmade, locally produced, organically produced. The world is fully awake about that. We have farms, we have devotees, we have a whole society, and we need to wake up for that market because that's occupation for our devotees also. So that's the point we like to make.
And if you look in Mayapur, much of the shops are selling plastic stuff compared to beautiful things that can be made by devotees. So green woodworking, as I mentioned in England, many people are going to the forests and producing things like these chairs from the trees right there. And people are marveling, oh, you made that? Because they don't see it anymore. You just see this plastic. So it's very fulfilling for the people. And for people who are looking for good products, they can find them here.
Yes. And this is another example, quite recent in our history. Ladakh, you may want to say.
Ladakh is up next to Jammu and Kashmir, up in the mountains. And it's been cut off from India. It was cut off from India for generations, for thousands of years. So one Swedish lady, Helena Norborg Hodge, she went to Ladakh and she marveled at how happy the people were. They had a 4-month growing season. The waters from the snow melt come down and that provides water for their agriculture. In 4 months, they would produce all of their needs. During that 4 months of working time. They would have plenty of time to relax while they were having their lunch. They produced everything they needed to give their brides silk saris and gold ornaments. They had beautiful big houses. So this lady was looking, and she asked one of the people, where are the poor people in Ladakh? And he thought, and he said, there aren't any poor people. Then the government built a road into Ladakh. And with the road came trucks, buses, things that they never had before, tourists spending more than a day than they would see in their entire lives, some of them. And the Ladakhis suddenly were feeling a loss, a lack, because they couldn't get the scooters and the sunglasses and the video machines. They had to go and get a job in Delhi. And this lady, the Swedish lady, she asked one of the Ladakhis, she saw the same boy that had spoken to her and said there are no people in Ladakh, no poor people in Ladakh. And he was talking to the tourists and he was saying, oh, you have to help us, Ladakhis, we're so poor. So in a short period of 15 years, Ladakh lost its culture completely. A culture that was completely self-sufficient, full of happy people with beautiful houses, living fulfilling lives, suddenly gone due to this materialistic civilization. And this lady, she said that what happened in Ladakh has happened in Europe over 100 years. We didn't notice it. There they saw it. The elders saw what has happened to our society due to lack of tradition, well, loss of tradition.
And I also had a similar experience in 1981-82. I was here in India, my father on his PhD studies from Cambridge and ISKCON, and he used to go to villages. And I just noticed the opulence that a village has. The whole village is like a living cell. Everybody had time, was happy. The children were pasturing the cows and they were tending the birds from the crops. And it was just a beautiful place to be. It has a very deep mark on a young teenager at that time. What kind of unit was that? And that now, this was 82. When you go now to Hyderabad, Telangana, the road I live, they said only the Bollywood actors live there. You wouldn't recognize the place any longer. But it's just being lost because of some kind of transmission of information. And in this, we're going to talk a little bit about this a little later, right? Okay. Are there current examples today?
Okay, so 90% of the Amish, the Amish community are the old Christians in America that came from Europe for persecution. 90% of the Amish kids attend single-room schools. Click.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is a typical Amish school. The Amish recognize that they have to keep their children isolated from the rest of the world. In Pennsylvania, for instance, they speak Pennsylvania Deutsch, which is a German dialect, an old dialect, because they don't want the kids to become too influenced by the materialism of the rest of America. So they teach them in these schools. They have an 85 to 95% retention rate. Children, when they turn 18, they're given the choice. Do you want to remain Amish, or do you want to go out into the world and live with the English, as they call them? And 95 to 8% remain as Amish. So traditional education and our values is so important to create a thriving community.
We'll go a little fast. We have 5 minutes. So retaining 85% of youth is something relevant. They remain as the rural people. They were traditionally farmers, and they're very happy as farmers. They start from a very young age. But now they've diversified because it's not so easy to get land now, and they're doing all sorts of small industries. Yeah, for example, there are currently around 12,000 successful businesses, and some of them turn over $7 million a year. So they're a very thriving community economically. Look at their handmade furniture.
And people really desire this handcrafted stuff. Businesses are ethically managed because the philosophy that they have insists on fair pricing. So that's also, and people appreciate that. You can get a good deal from the Amish, you get a good product at a good price.
Yes. And as a result of that, there's a huge solidarity. Every new Amish family is helped by the whole community. Now, just to give you an example, I have an Amish friend in America, and when I was going to visit him, his roof got burned. out. So we couldn't go in the morning. And the next day when we went back to him, he said, no problem. 72 Amish friends came, not only came, they brought materials, and by the evening, my roof was back in place. So that's a great solidarity example.
So the people that come to see, everyone's fascinated by the Amish. Who are these people? What are they doing? They don't use cars, they go in horse and carts. They're very careful about the selection of technology. What will this technology do to our community? Will it make us proud? Will we lose our understanding of life by adopting new technology? They're very careful. So people come to see them, and it generates $2 billion. I had to look at that again. $2 billion a year is the revenue that comes from people coming to see these people who are living this different lifestyle, very different to the rest of America. But it's wonderful. People love it. So there's a precedent.
So there is a market for authenticity, and to keep authenticity, their technology, not to get away from society, is to use selective technology. Every technology is scrutinized to see if that has a bad effect on the social fabric of their society or not. And if it does, they say no. And everybody follows. So as a reason, you could say they're not a preaching mission, yes, but if people are paying $2 billion to visit you, quite some people came to see you. It's like you're selling Bhagavad Gitas and everybody's coming to buy it from you. Okay? So then, the way forward, what would be the way forward? And your question might be, what would be the way forward? All right, very nice what you're saying, but what is the way forward? Okay, and very soon, we already have such a great wisdom in this room. Teachers, realized teachers. Here is one of our Gopi Paranadhan Prabhu. He founded the Sanskrit school. What an amazing institution. He was teaching. Many of the students here today are in senior positions in teaching Sanskrit, revising books for BBT. That's a teacher who started teaching. Now, that's Sanskrit. And also we have here different examples. Yeah,
Basically, the idea is that anyone who has ability and skills in a certain area, they can teach that area. So in the Gurukula, for instance, here in Mayapur, we're teaching in every aspect. The children, as they grow, they can engage in the Goshala work, or they can run the kitchen. The school is completely run by the boys of the Gurukul. The teachers observe what the boys are doing, but the boys are given the opportunity, and in this way you can see how they can develop and what their potential is. And there's so much potential.
Yes, we have to go just very quickly. Here in New Vrajadam, Antardi Prabhu, a very expert farmer. He's researched all the traditional technologies. Here in Sweden, Jan Malaya Prabhu, who's doing art and is teaching a student. So there's a great power and potential for you becoming teachers and starting a little bit of a vocational training where you are. And now this is the real question. How can educators help children to find their nature? That's the question for today. And I think we're going to start with question and answers. We may finish the other ones. Okay, all right. Okay. Any questions?
So
Any answers?
Radha Mataji at the back. And after that, Parabhakti Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. That was a good point about the Amish using selective technology. So I want to know, in Varnashrama, you emphasize a lot on going back to nature, but being surrounded by technology, it's also possible that children have an innate affinity for technology and using it. So does the Varnashrama college give an opportunity for that?
Actually, it does.
Computer-based technology.
Yeah, like just recently, for instance, we completed an adventure movie in the Gurukul. We'd written a script about a story about boys getting lost in the forest. And then in the summer, we have like a summer art schedule where the boys are asked, what would you like to do during this period? And so one of them said, filmmaking. So we had a script. So we took some other boys and we went out and we spent 9 months filming an adventure movie in and around Mayapur. And we're going to show it during the festival. And so there's one boy, Kripa from Belgium. He became expert in editing movies like that. And it's a preaching, the movie is actually a preaching experiment, and showing the boys the diversity and the different ways in which they can preach. So we are open to technology, especially it's there in them, like as it was mentioned previously. Use what there is as a tool for preaching Krishna consciousness, but make sure you don't compromise your values.
If I could add with this slide, which was the Varnashrama College, is really equipping the students to deal with their own nature. How can those who have the inclination be equipped to deal with their nature, isn't it? Like cow protection, you know. And then when they mature, they realize those values, you know, and they can rely on Krishna for a living, you know, and that's the graduation, one of the graduations at the Gurukul.
Thank you. Next question from Parabhakti Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. So thank you after your Urmila Mataji class and your class, and just to reach the nature of everyone, seems that it's very urgent to establish an educational marketing strategy. What do you think about?
Yes, I would say it's an absolute urgent need because we are so isolated. Where's Tapan Mishra Prabhu in the room? The bundle of sticks. And because of all the efforts over the years and we're not working together, as Yadunandana Prabhu mentioned before, there is a great need to be on the same page. So from our perspective, from the ministry I'm helping with, we're trying to identify those who are teachers in that field and perhaps connect to the platform, and we'll have a unified platform. Yes, thank you.
Narasimhananda Prabhu.
There is a plethora of tests that psychologists have developed that actually explore the nature of various personalities. To what degree have you looked into the kinds of resources available so it would be an aid to the teacher to be able to administer those tests and be able to interpret those tests properly so that they can actually have a more definitive understanding of a person's nature?
Samba, that's for you.
We have an extensive library in the Gurukul, which is many works of different people, including psychologists. We mostly rely on Prabhupada's instructions on how to bring out or to discover the innate abilities in the children. And because they have a wide range of activities, scope for activity in the school, it's quite easy actually to see where they best fit in. Over the period if they join when they're, say, 5 or 6 years old, by the time they're 15, 16, it's already become very clear. Some of them are going into the running of the shop. Some of them are into taking care of the kitchen. Some of them are into studying and preaching. It becomes quite clear. It's not really a big mystery. So, but we do look into the psychological aspect of it as well, but in a very simple way.
Actually, if I could comment on that, I think one thing which is really important is to identify that every skill has a mentality behind it. So identifying the mentality is, if not more important, than identify what skills you fit in. So I find that the technology that you give an opportunity in the field and the individuals choose what to do gradually leads to unveiling to, what is your nature. So I think the methodology, also in New Vrajadam in Hungary, that's a little bit their technique. Different departments, you go around, and after some time you kind of, fit in and you understand, I'm happy here.
And one of the most important things is that our society provides, if we educate the children in the right way, where can we put them in our society? We need to diversify much more in our activities in ISKCON so that we can keep our own people in association with devotees, producing our needs. Prabhupada said, we are ISKCON, a society to be independent from outside help. So that's an area that we still need to work on.
And that leads to our question, which is like, how can ISKCON help our children to engage their nature?
Thank you. I'll request Mother Urmila to ask her question.
Actually, it's just a comment that I thought you just might want to know. I'm working with a devotee, Rukmini, not the Rukmini. Her name is also Dr. Ruchira Datta. And we're very far along with finishing a book on this very topic, with your blessings, which should be done by next January. Looking thoroughly at Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and also a lot of empirical research. It's written in language for the general public, but it also should be something that will help ISKCON to develop how to ascertain people's nature, how to engage them according to their nature, and all the principles of Varna as given in the Shastra. So I'm hoping that our work will be complementary to what you're doing and that we'll be able to go forward. So I just wanted to inform you that it's already written. We're in the editing process at this point.
Thank you. That's a wonderful contribution. One more of Mother Urmila Mataji's contribution, valuable contribution.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
You take that? Okay, Prabhu. Can we please pass on a mic there at the end to Chetan, Prabhu? Prabhu, if you have a loud voice, you can please. You don't? Okay.
Prabhuji, we are, exposed to so much of new technologies that are coming nowadays. But coincidentally and unfortunately, we don't have a compilation of technologies that have existed and made generations to survive. So are you kind of thinking of making an effort in that direction? For example, how do you preserve food? Nowadays, we cannot think without refrigerators, but our ancestors have preserved foods for days together without, even knowing the technology of refrigeration. Similarly, you talked about agriculture, right? So,
Yes, absolutely. We are running conference in 6 continents this year for that very purpose. The Continental Farm Conference was started in 2008 by Shiv Ram Swami, Balabhadra Prabhu, and so many others, and we have expanded it, and this year we are reaching 6 continents. Actually, the first Southeast Asian Farm Conference starting next year.
I'd like to thank Samba Prabhu and Kalakantha Prabhu for sharing with us.
Thank you very, very
about
much.
abundant living through dharma or occupational duty.